Happy Women's Month to all women out there. This episode will revolve around this momentous event. And before we start, I just want to share this saying or quote with you from G.D. Anderson. Feminism is not about making women strong. Women are already strong. It's about changing the way the world perceives that strength. So recently we celebrated the International Women's Day last March 8, 2022. And why do we celebrate Women's Month? In the Philippines, the Women's Month celebration has since served as a venue to highlight women's achievements and discuss continuing and emerging empowerment, and also gender equality concerns, issues, challenges, and commitments. So for this podcast episode, we invited an empowered woman who will share her interests and experiences in life and how she empowered herself and the others. So I'll read her bio. Actually, she's a registered librarian and a volunteer storyteller. She graduated magna cum laude with a bachelor's degree in library and information science and later her master's degree from the University of San Carlos. She has a PhD in literary studies from Suleiman University, and she is the recipient of the 2020 NCCA Dissertation Research Award and the 2021 NCCA Manunulat Competitive Grants. She teaches undergraduate and graduate courses at the University of San Carlos and serves as the Deputy Director of the Cebuano Studies Center. She is also the Director of the Centro ng Wika at Kultura in the University of San Carlos. Give it up for Dr. Bea Martinez Lastimosa. Happy Women's Month, Miss Bea.
Hi, Miss Charlene. Happy Women's Month. Thank
How are
you for
you?
the invitation.
Of course, it is our pleasure.
Doing well.
Actually, we're so grateful for your positive response on this invitation. And yeah, also, thank you for sharing your time with us for this episode. And I hope you're doing well today. Right?
Yes, very well. Of course, how could I say no to the librarians who helped me a lot here in the
Aw.
center? It's really a pleasure to be here with your podcast.
Yay. Right? I believe our listeners would be very excited to know more about you. So perhaps you can share with us something about yourself. And since it's Women's Month, what is your advocacy in life as a woman?
Okay, my name is Bea Martinez Lastimosa. I'm a licensed teacher and a librarian, and I hold a master's degree in librarianship from the University of San Carlos and a PhD in English with concentration in literary studies from Suleiman University. Now, my childhood was unremarkable, really, except for the 4 years of homeschool that we did when I was in high school. So those years certainly shaped me and gave me the freedom to explore my interests in a very fun and safe environment. So I don't think I struggled much with a sense of identity that most teenagers go through. My advocacy in life as a woman, I guess the fastest answer to that would be books, reading, and education. But it hardly feels like an advocacy since I have the privilege of doing what I love. So advocacy and hobby, there's a very thin line there for me. Is it an advocacy or is it a hobby? It's hard to tell sometimes. But as I come from a family of educators, myself having an unusual education, like I mentioned earlier, it is something that I wish to share with many people. So books and public libraries, especially, they provide excellent formats for informal education. So 10 years ago, I was invited by Attorney Melvin Ligaspe, who is now running for city councilor in Cebu City, to join a meeting in the public library. And there were only a handful of us that day. The meeting was a proposal of sorts, a proposal to launch a nonprofit organization for volunteer storytellers. So we called it the Ambassadors, that is the Ambassadors for Reading. And it's been going strong for 10 years now.
You're one
Yeah,
of the foundations of the ambassadors.
Yes, it was me,
Alvin
Legaspe, Chris Everett, Plato. I think there were like 6 or 7 of us who started the organization. Although under Melvin's very excellent leadership. So, we've been going strong for 10 years now. We just celebrated our 10th year anniversary. We've been bringing
Wow.
children to the public library or reading centers for storytelling sessions, or we've been bringing stories to those who can't access libraries, books, reading centers. So we've been doing that for a long time. So yeah, that's what we've been doing now. We've also had a lot of other activities like book donations, book drives, story writing activities, child protection trainings. I think that's also Melvin's passion, child protection trainings. So, I don't normally do politics, but since this is very much in line with my own personal advocacy, librarians might want to consider voting for Melvin Legaspe, since I know he shares the same passions that we librarians have, no? This is a
Oh,
love for books and free education that the public libraries provide. So it's, I think, one like focus good on the things that we do also that would be good for the city.
I see. You talked about ambassadors. Actually, when I had my OJT
Mhm.
practicum in Cebu City Public Library, so that was, I think, 2017 or 2016. The organization itself went there, and then there was a storytelling with the kids, and it was just so cute and nice. And I was thinking that then, how can I join this organization? I mean, yeah, but that was during my practicum.
You can still join,
It's
you can still join. We've been doing
really.
online storytelling sessions now, and I think we have something.
Mm.
We're having something now. Like I think our meetup barangay is just putting up
Mm-mm.
their like public library because
Wow.
the person in charge of the barangay reading center is also very innovative and very dedicated. So they're having now a public library there. So I think they're ribbon cutting. I think this weekend. So there's also
Oh,
gonna be some activities there. Yeah,
that's
you can still
interesting.
join.
Oh my God. I'll contact you about that
Yeah.
one.
Actually, that was also something that we observed before because a lot of us, we had at one point met each other prior to the ambassadors,
Mm-mm.
the public library book clubs, doing storytelling sessions. So that's when Melvin kind of noticed that there's a lot of like self-directed or self activities there. No, a lot of volunteers, but how do we get these volunteers together and make it more consistent, make it more sustainable? So that's kind of how it came together. So a lot of these people were actually longtime storytellers in the public library.
Wow. Mm-mm. I'm not so good with storytelling, but maybe I can try.
Yeah, actually, my forte is not really storytelling either. So I think I really
Really?
came, yeah, I came in with the like book suggestions. Like for
Mm.
example, for this month, what's the theme? What's the age
Mm-mm.
range? What are the books that are good for the children of this age and this age with this theme?
Oh,
So,
yeah, since
and what
you're a
titles to
librarian.
sell? Librarians, good na.
So nice. Yeah. So since we talk about Women's Month and a lot of women and organizations celebrate this momentous event. And what does Women's Month mean to you? Like, in your opinion, why do you think it is given importance and being celebrated? Since we know that in history, women are considered second class.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. Because it's a celebration, but it actually has a rather sad history. So,
Mm-mm.
so it's a little bit, So I think women have had a sad and a difficult history, and there's no denying that. And it wasn't meant to be that way. But the more men and women stray from, God's purpose and design when He created this world, the more we also
Mm-mm.
lose the dignity that we had when we were created. So it's very troubling to read and to still see women being marginalized and mistreated. So I think Women's Month is a celebration of the progress that women's rights have made, and how more equal opportunities there are for us. So it's definitely a time to reflect and a time to be grateful for how far we've
Yeah.
come. It's also a time for us to spread awareness to continue to protect these rights that we have, and also to kind of spread awareness to that change is possible, especially to countries where women have little rights, and that's a reality in other countries. Women's rights are still very little progress there, so it's also an opportunity for us to spread awareness. But also, I believe it's a celebration of difference. Now, I don't really agree with some of the trends now where women are made to be the same as men, as if there's no difference between male
Yeah.
and female, because there are.
There are,
And
yeah.
these differences are something that we should not be ashamed of. It's something to be celebrated because they are uniquely ours and are shared only by women. So I think it's that. There's an aspect wherein it's kind of sad and there's a sense of responsibility when we celebrate it. But on the other hand, there's also that celebration of difference. Where we're not the same as men.
Yeah.
There are equal opportunities, but we're also not the same as men. And this is we have these experiences that is uniquely ours, and it should be celebrated.
True. Yeah. Women's Month really is the time to celebrate us women and, the achievements of women. And it is also devoted to, as you have said, seeking gender equality. And it's a month of, women's strength to be recognized despite of the differences with, the men.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, what are the things that empowered you as a woman? Can you share some of your experiences, maybe on a personal note or on a professional aspect?
Okay. A lot of things that empowered me as a woman, I see as gifts from a gracious God to a person who really deserves none of them. So while I understand the word empowered as it is used in the context of Women's Month, I also kind of sometimes try avoiding using it in a way that promotes self-reliance rather than gratitude and dependence on God. So when I answer this question, it kind of has to be taken within that context. No, having said that, the things that I do or have done that people think are empowering hardly feel empowering to me, because to be honest, I find this profession of ours rather daunting. No, um, and there's certainly a place for celebrating milestones and achievements, but sometimes when I look at the things that I have already done and I hope contributed in our profession, it also still feels very compared to the work that I know still has to be done. So sometimes my focus is more there rather than what have I already done. And the things that I have done and have accomplished certainly haven't come, it hasn't come by easily either. So it took a lot of sleepless nights, poorly written
Hard work.
drafts, yeah, many rewritten drafts, and the like, and nothing ever seems to come easily. So I think though that just being able to get them done is very satisfying, and also at the same time very humbling because we don't do it alone. And
Yeah.
I don't know if I feel empowered by them, but it is certainly very satisfying and exciting. And that's kind of also where there's a thin line between advocacy and hobby, because sometimes it feels like, oh, I'm just doing what I love. But I think though, rather than myself feeling empowered, the ways that I really feel are moments of empowerment is when we are able to like give it to someone. I think we know this as librarians that when we are able to introduce children to a world of books, we're actually instilling in them a love for lifelong learning. And it's a love for lifelong learning, that they're going to be independent
True.
learners, and that's going to be for the rest of their lives, really. So um so that I feel is a moment of empowerment, not really for myself, but for the people that we are able to give that to. So I used to always say that we should always bring these kids to the public library. I mean, it's good, no, that we can bring stories to children, but when we bring them to the library, we're establishing that connection where they know, oh, okay, this is the place where books are free and books are plenty. They never run out. And if I just have to go there, and books are fun and stories are fun. And so they make that
Unlimited
own
access.
connection, no, for themselves. So that
Yeah.
I feel good is very empowering for a lot of children.
Yeah. And yeah, just to add, I believe that a community with individuals who love reading, love going to the library will make it a better community as well.
Yes, I agree. No, I have a lot of good
Mhm.
friends from there. Friends like even the city librarian. Ever since I was high school,
Wow.
college, no, first year college, I've been volunteering there since forever.
Wow.
So those are like I think also lifelong friends.
Amazing. That's very nice. Actually, it was just during college when I am introduced to libraries. Yeah.
So what made you go,
And
hala,
that
bangin,
really
no? What made you go to librarianship?
actually it's not my uh first choice. Yeah.
Okay.
It's just that I never had one. No, it was my aunt who recommended the BLIS since I was so undecided
Mm,
when I stepped into college, and then slowly I fell in love with it. And
okay.
yeah, I think it's a pretty good thing.
Yeah, there's so much to be done there. Here, rather,
Mhm.
not here.
Yeah. Okay. So when it comes to our profession, since we talk about librarianship, particularly in the Philippines, where there are more women than men. What can you share about this observation?
Hmm. Yeah, no, I think that's something we all observe. Well,
Yeah,
I
there are a
am
lot of women librarians.
more women than men. Well, I
Yeah.
am very proud and grateful for all the librarians, whether male or female, in this country. But there is no denying that there are more women than men in our field.
True.
So I am doubly proud of all the women librarians who have dedicated their professional lives to our field. Now, actually, I'm a lot has been written on the topic of librarianship as a feminized profession. So it's not only here in the Philippines, but even in other parts of the world.
Even oh.
And in fact, one report that I read in the US, okay, they kind of pointed out that librarianship is a feminized profession because women were hired for like the lower salaries, like they don't earn
Oh,
the rate
the
compared to men
sad
are the same.
history.
Yeah, and
Uh-uh.
because women are more suited to work within the walls of a library. So this is true not only of the librarian professional, but even other professions
Mm-mm.
that generally involve women, and that's part of the celebration of Women's Month. Now, I
Yeah.
think that perception has changed somewhat. I mean, has changed by leaps and bounds.
Mm.
Uh, and although its origins are rather dark, there's a lot of like unfairness there. Although its origins are dark, I think
Mhm.
the women librarians of today have inherited a very rich profession from all the women librarians who came before us. And I think being a librarian is no mean task. It's one of the most ancient of professions. I have a
Yeah.
favorite, right, diba? Um,
Oh.
I have a favorite writer when it comes to reading and books and libraries. He writes about the topic a lot. His name is Alberto Manuel. And it's not surprising. I discovered him here in the San Carlos Library when I was also first year college.
Really?
So that was a long time ago. One of the interesting things that he said that kind of intrigued me was he said that libraries are not simply repositories of learning, they are nerve centers of civilizations. So it's like the
There.
heart, no? Heart, the
Yeah.
nervous, like that nervous system. It's not just like for learning, but it's the heart of a civilization.
Mm-mm.
And so basically, it's a history of human learning. And librarians have the task of collecting them, organizing them, making them accessible to
Mm-mm.
readers, for preserving them for future readers. But we also know that this is a little bit, this can be problematic because whatever we include, we also exclude, right? So they're not only centers of
Yeah.
inclusion, they're also centers of exclusion through censorship, through bias, or lack of
Yeah. Yeah.
representation. So I think that it is the role of librarians to fight for equal representations, whether it is for women, for minorities, for marginalized
Mm.
country. I mean, a favorite
True.
example of mine is the case of Philippine literature in the Dewey Decimal System. when we a very quick glance at our position in the BDC just goes to show how little represented we are in the world. I mean, we get the 899 point something
Yeah,
number
999 something.
classified under other literatures, not even Philippine literature.
True.
So I think I'm digressing, but my point is that although the profession of women librarians in the past and in our country also had dark beginnings, we are now in an empowered position to rectify that lack of representation by expanding and challenging categories, classifications, and even collections. So that's what I think.
Wow. But that's true, no? We had a 9999 something, and I think
Yeah.
it's yeah.
89 point something, something, something.
Yeah. Yeah. As you've mentioned, you really love reading, and I see you as a wide reader, really. Can you share with us who influenced or inspired you?
Yeah, no, actually, talking about books is one of my favorite topics. So I'll have to
Oh.
control myself a little bit. Big books were a big thing for us in our home growing up. So my parents always made sure we had plenty of books to read. And I have three
Amazing.
sisters. We're all readers. So we spent all of our
Wow.
pocket money, birthday money, Christmas money. We spent it all on books. And our parents supported
Amazing.
that. And my mom, she was very supportive. She would always take us to the bookstores, especially like RSO. I don't think you know this anymore because these are old bookstores in Cebu. Before no RSO, Cebu Thrift House. She used to take us there every time she groceries and then she'd pay for our books. We'd always tell her,
Oh,
no, Mom, we'll just go with you. We won't buy anything. And then she'd say, fine. But then she always knows, that when she picks us up after grocery, we're holding a book or two, like, please, can we buy
it's a
this?
trap.
It's a trap, but she's an accomplice to the trap.
But
And
it's
and
so
my
nice
dad,
that she's very supportive.
yeah, she's very
Mm-mm.
supportive. Yun. My dad, he also monitored the books that we read. And it was really from my dad when that he taught us how to think. When he felt like we were reading books that were rather difficult or the themes were kind of complex, sometimes too complex for a child, um, he would discuss them with us. So books like Crime and Punishment by Fyodor Dostoevsky, Les Miserables by Victor Hugo, Count of Monte Cristo by Alexander Dumas, Wuthering Heights by Emily Bront. So he would discuss these books with us, but to be honest, he couldn't always keep up because we read a lot. So when he can't keep up, he lets us like make a list of all the books that we read in a week and give it to him
Wow.
so he'll go over it. At least he kind of knows what we're reading, or he would let us write
Amazing.
book reports. He didn't have the time to read them. We didn't also have the time to write them. So it was just like in theory, okay, Dad will write the book report. I think I only wrote one or two. And then he also didn't have the time to read it. But really, I think though that he taught us how to think while reading. That was always what he kept telling us. When you're reading, keep on thinking, keep on questioning the writer. Don't take it as truth. Keep on questioning the writer as you're reading. So I think because of that, no, it was one of the best childhoods. Because of the books and the stories that we read, we were always reading, even when it's lights out, reading hapon. And then
Amazing.
when we wake up, especially on summer, we read. Even in elementary school, when I'm walking, like in between breaks, I'm
You're
reading.
reading.
So we were always reading. So yeah, that was one
Amazing.
of the things that we kept doing. And actually, when we got married, my three sisters, there are four of us, and three of us got married in the same year. And one of our biggest problem was, how do we split our books? Like how do we split it? So of course we brought our books with us. My youngest sister doesn't have a lot of books because she's the youngest and she just borrows from all of our shelves. So she left with like only like a little books, but
Hand me
I think I
down
left
books.
with over 3,000 books. So, no,
Whoa.
not 3,000. I'm sorry. Yeah. Over that much.
Amazing.
So we had to give away a lot. We donated a lot to the public library, and then um, now I'm stocking them in a room that I'm renting because they won't fit in the condo.
3,000 is a
Yeah.
lot. Yeah. Just a sidetrack, what is your most favorite book from that 3,000 volumes?
That's so
I think
hard.
you have 10 favorites.
That's so hard. Right now, I'm
From
into Italian writers, so probably somewhere within there, or Spanish
amazing.
writers, somewhere within there. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-mm. Talking about books, can you recommend books that promote the sense of self-worth?
Okay.
Sense of self-worth,
Um,
yeah.
um, you know, I have to kind of say on the like in the like at the very beginning that I don't really read for a sense of self-worth or even
Mm,
self-validation. In fact, a lot of the women writers that I read make me very uncomfortable because you come face to face with pieces of womanhood that are very complex and not always beautiful. But having said that, I can recommend women writers to you. Um,
mm-mm.
they're actually a relatively new discovery for me. Growing up, I read the usual women writers that you would find on an American high school reading list, like the Bronte sisters, Jane Austen, Ellen Montgomery, Louisa May Alcott, Toni Morrison, Willa Cather, George Eliot, who is actually female. So. Um, but after I had gone through that kind of like the usual list, I suppose you can consider them classic Western writers. I kind of lost interest in contemporary women writers and the themes that they wrote about until recently. I think maybe mga 3 years ago, I discovered new
Mm-mm.
writers and they're basically women writers and they're basically what I've been reading for the past few years now. And a lot of them are from marginalized literatures. So I'd like to name a few. The Ukrainian born Brazilian novelist and short story writer Clarice Lispector. She's brilliant, really absolutely brilliant. I have a special love in my heart right now, like I said earlier, for Italian writers
Mm-mm.
like Elena Ferrante, Donatella di Pietrantonio. I don't really know how to pronounce her name. Natalia Ginsburg, and another one who I actually haven't read, but is on my list, so I'll just include her, like Elsa
Why?
Morante. She's so hard to find. She's so hard to find. Um, but like I really want to read her. So these are my current obsessions. So they're really good. Like Elena Ferrante is like, wow. I think she's the first I read that kind of really um, showed me, but that the female, the experience of a woman is very unique. And so she's probably start with Elena Ferrante. Another one that I like is Anne Goldstein. Now, Anne Goldstein, technically, she's a translator. She's not a writer, but I love how she writes anyway. So I buy anything that she translates into English. So I think she brings a certain sensibility with her that is very female. So I also like that. The Hungarian novelist Magda Szabo. Oh, she's so good. You should read her. You should read The Door. That's good. This one you will find in a lot of in book sale a lot. The South Korean writer Han Kang, especially her book The Vegetarian. Should also read that one. Tot Ditlevsen. She's a new one for me, like very new. I think probably my latest. She's a Danish poet and author, and she wrote the Copenhagen trilogy. Uh, it's not beautiful, her experience. Um, Very selfish. She became an addict. She became very hooked to
Mm.
drugs. The lies that she tells herself, but also the honesty with which she faces those things. She's certainly not someone I think you would fall in love with, but like I said, no, you don't really read it for self-worth, but because you come face to face with pieces of womanhood that are very complex and sometimes ugly. Silvana Ocampo, she's an Argentinian short story writer, poet, and artist. She's actually also the wife of one of the best writers, Adolfo Casares. So she's also
Mhm.
very good. The Polish writer, Olga Tokarczuk, I don't know how to pronounce her name. She won the Nobel Prize for Literature for her book Drive Your Plow Over the Bones of the Dead. She's good. Another one is the Argentinian writer Samantha Schweblin. Oh, she's so good. She just blew my mind away. Like I when I read her, I was like, it's a very psychological book, no? You can read Fever Dream. I think you can start with there. When I and she talks about motherhood, but it's a little bit horror, so it's also nice.
Really.
But when she writes, I really felt uh like that she's such a gifted writer. Now, these authors that I said, they don't provide solutions. They don't provide answers or definitive definitions to the problems of women. I think there's too much baggage there, in what it means to be a woman. And if anything, these books end with a sense of loss. But what they do, I think, is to give voice to the female experience. Like they kind of recognize our experiences and they write about it. They don't prettify it. They don't make it seem all rosy. They don't even pretend that there are solutions to these problems. So in a sense, that is validating our experiences. And it's that moment of recognition when we read a book and we see something of ourselves in the book, even if it's not nice, the nice parts. And when we realize that the book is as much talking to us as we are reading from it. And I think that's what art is. Now, it's certainly not always comfortable or beautiful in the conventional sense of the word, but it's our experience and it's pieces of us there. So yeah, I kept on thinking like books for self-worth. I can't actually think, no. It's validating because it recognizes my good. It gives voices to our experience.
True.
I don't know if you watched that katong movie nga, Little Women, and there's a
Yes,
part
I
there.
watched.
You watched it, okay?
Mhm.
There's a part there towards the end that's not actually in the novel, but Amy kind of asked Joe like, "Oh, why don't you write?" And Joe's like, "What will I write about domestic life?" And nobody writes about domestic life. It's all about like adventures and that kind. And Amy said, "Well,
Because she was a
probably
writer.
yeah, Joe was a writer, and Amy said, "Well, probably that's why you should write it. Should write about it." So it's kind of like that, no. This is our experiences, and I think there are more women than men in the world. So that's like how much, like 50% or even more of the world's experiences. So it should be given a voice. No? It should be recognized, and to give kind of like a whole picture of humanity. So those writers, you try to read them. I only discovered them a little recently, like maybe mga 3 years ago.
Amazing, because you have a lot. I can't keep up. But anyway, I had to, rewind or watch this recording again to take down all of those authors you mentioned. Yeah. How about books that promote having the right to influence social change? Uh,
Um, I think I would refer you to the same list of authors that I
you
mentioned
mentioned.
earlier. Because when you are recognizing mong good and experience, you're saying that this is it. Now you might not be providing solutions. These women are not even attempting to change the world, really.
Yeah.
But there's a sense of awareness that is created there, and so I think everyone who reads it, and it should be read by a lot of people, so that we can also do something about these things. So no, they're not ambitious. No, they're not going for social change or anything. But I think when we read it, there's a sense of responsibility already that we have when we read it, and we kind of recognize, even if it's not social change, but being more, having more empathy to our mothers. For example, like Elena Ferrante, she wrote Troubling Love, story about a woman and her dead mother. So there's a lot of responsibility that comes there. Now it might not be social change, but
True.
at least it's giving voice to our experiences and saying that, hey, this is what it's like.
Amazing. We will take note of these titles and let's see if these are available in the library. And might as well start reading them.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
should. Highly recommend it.
Honestly, I'm not really a wide reader. Like, I'm not a bookworm type of person. But yeah, I read probably titles that uh, um something like interested bitaw ko. So if feeling ako dili ko ganahan kay dili ko ma-read, right, nga na lang.
I was also like
Yeah.
that. Yeah, before.
Oh. Mm. So yeah. I'm more of a K-drama fan than magbasa.
Oh yeah, there's also a lot of merit there, you know. There's a lot.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay. And I think we're down to the last question. Yeah. So, what's your view on having women as the most recognized artists in the field of literature?
Well, why not? No, I
Yeah.
think it kind of rotates more. Sometimes it goes to a woman, sometimes it goes to a man, but most of the time it's men. But this is actually
Oh, it's men.
connected to kind of what I felt before. You know, when I was younger, women writers had very little to say to me and little to offer to me. And this is not a failure on their part, no, but on mine. They had little to say to me because it took me a long time to grow up. And I had a very comfortable world and I knew where I belonged, didn't have a sense of identity like issues. I knew the dynamics of the relationships that I had with my dad, my mom, my sisters, my friends. But the older I got, the more things changed. And now the thoughtful reflections of women writers really resonate with me. Like I said, mga 3 years ago lang, and I'm already 33. And I know they do with a lot of other readers now. And I think the female experience, along with other kinds of experiences, of course, not just female, is something that should be recognized in the literary field. So why not? You know, like why not be recognized? And I think there should be more representation there. When it comes to literature. I think that's even one of the reasons why growing up, a lot of the books that I read were by male writers. And they develop your taste actually. They develop your taste for books. So I naturally gravitated towards books that were written by men. Um, for example, I naturally gravitate to books that win the Pulitzer Prize rather than books that win like the Man Booker Prize. I think that's a Western education that we kind of got. It kind of developed our sensibilities, our taste for words. So I kind of developed there. It took a long time for me. I think the older you get, the more you realize things, like for example, how problematic that relationship is with the West. So you actually notice a lot of things. And so I started shifting to other marginalized literature and literatures from other countries, and also our own literature here in the Philippines. So it kind of expanded and expanded. And the last thing that actually got to me was the literature written by women. That was the last thing. I think I explored literatures from other countries before I reached women's literature. So I think I think that's part of our responsibility, that when you award someone in the field of literature, in any field, there's a lot of politics involved there, no? We also award to give like a sense of kind of like promoting that literature. So for example, some people would say that, oh, why would you award this writer? He's already so well read. Like there are other more obscure writers that should be awarded, but more people will read them. So there's also a sense in which that is true. So I think it's also in a sense part of our responsibility to give awards to women writers. It's it widens our horizons, but of course, so long as they also so long as they also deserve it, no. I mean, I would hate to be a female writer who got an award just because I'm female and not because I can write as well as anybody else, right? I think that's an insult also. So that, yeah.
You educated me with so many things in just this 30-minute, sharing of thoughts. And yeah, thank you so much, Miss.
You're welcome.
Sorry if I can't keep up with all of those titles, authors you mentioned, because I'm not really, I'm a librarian, but I'm not really a wide reader, as I've mentioned.
There's
But
always
I will,
that.
I will take note of those titles and I'll try if these are available at the library or something.
Start with Elena.
Yeah.
She got me started.
Really, so I'll try that one. Okay. I believe this ends our sharing of thoughts and your experiences concerning with this month's celebration, and of course, including your profession as a librarian as well. And I'm so grateful and honored to have you as one of our, special guests in our podcast series. This is just our fourth episode.
Where will you be posting it?
Oh, on YouTube, on USC Library's YouTube channel, and we will upload this one on March 31. Yeah, for the culmination of Women's Month.
Thank you so much,
Yeah.
Miss. Thank you also to Ma'am Concon.
Thank you so much.
All
Oo.
right.
I'm looking forward for more collaborations with you.
Yes.
Thank you, Miss.
Bye.
Bye.
So, yes, our guest for this episode is really amazing. She's a total package, and I love her heart for reading and literature. She also mentioned a lot of interesting book titles. Might as well check them out. And I guess that's it for this episode. Happy Women's Month to all the women out there. And always remember the saying by Stephanie Bennett Henry: life is tough, my darling, but so are you. I'm Shirley Ramos, and this is Coffee Break with Sha. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.